Imagine this. On the night of August 8th, 1963, a group of criminals, armed with nothing but wits and a well-executed plan, pulled off a robbery that would go down in history as one of the most daring heists ever committed. No, they didn't storm a bank or hijack a vault. They hijacked a moving train. A Mies Royal Mail train, loaded with millions of pounds in cash. What makes this story even more incredible is how they managed to pull it off without ever firing a shot. The Great Train Robbery wasn't just a crime, it was an audacious masterpiece of planning, deception, and timing. So, how did they do it? And what happened after they got away with it? Stay tuned as we unravel the incredible story of the Great Train Robbery of 1963. The Royal Mail train, the perfect target. To understand the sheer magnitude of the robbery, let's first understand the significance of the Mercure Royal Mail train. This wasn't just any ordinary cargo train. It carried cash, valuable documents, and important government securities. These shipments were essential to the UK's economy, going from Glasgow to London, a long and steady route across the British countryside. The total haul was worth an estimated £2.6 million, or about £50 million in today's money. This train carried large sums of cash, frequently used to settle financial transactions between the banks in London and Scotland. And because of its predictable route and schedule, the train was a prime target for any criminal with a plan. Meet the mastermind, Bruce Reynolds. Behind this meticulously planned heist was Bruce Reynolds, a career criminal with a reputation for being smart, ruthless, and unpredictable. But Reynolds wasn't just some run-of-the-mill criminal. He was a master strategist who had pulled off small-time robberies before. But now, he was about to set his sights on something far bigger. Reynolds was a perfectionist. He didn't leave things to chance. He studied the system, learned its weaknesses, and built a team of highly skilled criminals who knew how to get in and out unnoticed. They didn't rely on weapons. They relied on timing, stealth, and absolute control. Reynolds wasn't working alone. He assembled a crew of 15 men, each with a specific role. Some were experienced criminals, others were new to the game, but all shared one thing in common: a deep understanding of how to execute an operation with military-like precision. The planning phase. Precision and deception. The plan didn't come together overnight. Reynolds and his team spent months meticulously planning every detail. They knew the Royal Mail train's schedule down to the minute, and they also knew the exact spot where they'd intercept it. This wasn't just a random heist. It was a well-thought-out operation that involved knowing the signal system, timing the train's route, and outsmarting the authorities. Here's where the brilliance of the plan came into play. The criminals tampered with the signal system, causing the train's driver to stop at a spot where he believed the signal was clear. This spot was a secluded area, far from any major town, making it the perfect place to carry out the heist. As the train slowed down to stop at the green signal, the robbers knew that the crew would have no reason to suspect anything was wrong. The criminals boarded the train, and in a matter of minutes, they took control of the locomotive and its valuable cargo. The robbery: speed, precision, and no violence. As the criminals boarded the train, they acted swiftly and efficiently. 2 train drivers, a guard, and a handful of other crew members were quickly overpowered and locked in a compartment. But here's the most remarkable part. No one was harmed. There were no violent confrontations, no shots fired. It was a clean, coldly calculated operation. The criminals moved quickly to the Royal Mail carriage, where £2.6 million in cash was waiting. They filled bags with cash, gold, and other valuables, moving with such precision that no one on board had any idea what was going on until it was too late. They didn't rush things. They took their time to load the money carefully. It was a well-oiled machine. Timing and stealth were key. The robbers knew exactly how long they had before the police would be alerted. The getaway, the perfect escape. Once the job was done, The criminals didn't hang around. They had already arranged for a series of getaway vehicles to whisk them away. They split into smaller groups and went in different directions, ensuring that no one could track them to a single location. The authorities were slow to respond. The criminals had taken all precautions to avoid being tracked. By the time the police arrived, the robbers were long gone, and the money was already on its way to several different hideouts. The aftermath: how they got away with it. For a while, the great train robbers were untouchable. The authorities had no solid leads, no fingerprints, no obvious clues. The criminals had pulled off the perfect heist. It was weeks before the police even had a suspect, let alone a clue as to who was behind the operation. The robbers had been planning this for months. They didn't make any rookie mistakes. They knew how to disappear. The investigation was one of the largest and most complex in British history. The capture, the robbers' downfall. However, their luck didn't last forever. The investigation continued, and slowly but surely, clues began to surface. Eventually, the criminals started to make critical mistakes, either betraying each other or leaving behind traces that led to their capture. The mastermind, Bruce Reynolds, was caught and sentenced to 25 years in prison. But incredibly, Reynolds was released after serving just 10 years for good behavior. He later became something of a folk hero among criminals, a symbol of the audacity and skill required to pull off such a heist. The legacy: a criminal masterpiece. The Great Train Robbery didn't just go down in history as one of the most successful robberies ever. It became an icon of criminal ingenuity and audacity. The story has been retold in books, films, and documentaries. It became a symbol of the perfect crime, a tale of daring, skill, and cold calculation. Movies like The Great Train Robbery and countless documentaries have immortalized the criminals who took part in this daring act. But the legacy isn't just in the crime itself. It changed the way law enforcement and criminals alike approach heists, making this story a milestone in the history of criminal operations. So, what made the Great Train Robbery of 1963 such a remarkable crime? It wasn't the money, although that was substantial. It wasn't even the robbery itself, as bold as it was. It was the planning, the precision, and the absolute control that the criminals demonstrated. In a world that now seems dominated by high-tech security systems and cameras, this heist stands as a testament to what can happen when criminals outthink the system. And, perhaps most importantly, it's a reminder that sometimes the most incredible crimes aren't the result of brute force, but of masterful strategy and careful execution. Thanks for joining us in unraveling the story of the Great Train Robbery. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most audacious heists in history, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more captivating tales from the world of crime. And if you think you could have pulled off such a daring heist, drop your thoughts in the comments below.